We're a work in progress, in process. So some of us back away from that and say, oh, no, don't follow me, just follow Jesus. But that's not what Paul says, because people need to see an example. If we're going to bring transformation, we need to become a living example. And here's what we get wrong so often in leadership. We think that people need a perfect example. Well, they have a perfect example. His name is Jesus. He's perfect. But what they need from us is a living example. Somebody who's on the journey. Somebody who's put one foot in front of the other, who gets it wrong sometimes, but who gets back up and continues pressing forward in their followership of Jesus. That is the leader. That's the servant leader that Scripture talks about. Now, I want to share a tool with you. And as a matter of fact, on your tables, you have this little half sheet of paper. I would encourage everyone to grab one of those, because we're going to refer to this several times during our chat. And on one of the sides, we have what looks like this bullseye here. And I want to talk for just a minute about your life and about your leadership and how that plays out. Okay? You see in the middle of that bullseye is the word self. And this is where leadership begins, friends. Because if I can't lead myself, how can I lead you? If I am not a leader worth following the way Paul talked about in terms of being a living example, how can I have true influence in the lives of other people? You see, before my burnout in ministry, organizationally things were going pretty well. Our church plant was growing. I was kind of becoming a rising star in my little denomination up north. I was getting asked to come speak and do things because we went from 0 to about 120 in worship in a very small town in just a few years in Michigan, not even a few years, about a year. And Todd Bilby has a similar experience as a church planter in Florida. Organizationally, things were going well. Our community was being impacted. But I'll tell you, I wasn't leading very well. I wasn't leading myself very well. I wasn't leading my family very well. And when those two circles aren't healthy, I don't care how great things look on the outside, eventually that's all going to cave in. And for me, the night came when my wife said, I can't stay here with you anymore. And she went to pack a bag. And she was leaving. And I realized I have totally failed to lead myself and to lead her. I've been so busy trying to build this church and trying to do all the right things and be successful that I have forgotten the most important thing. Which is to follow Christ myself and to lead my own life and to lead my wife and my children, and I had to start over. I had to start over. I had to step out and start over. So it starts with yourself. It goes from yourself to your family, and then to your team, and then to your organization, and ultimately it's going to impact your community. So the question that we have that I'd love for all of you to wrestle with today is, how do you move from accidental to intentional in your influence? Which of these 5 circles in your life right now needs more intentionality? And I would encourage you, of course, to start with the middle circle and work outwards. So the question that we ask you, this is sort of the challenge that one of the challenges we want to bring you is list one intentional action item, and I'm just going to say not for each circle, but for one circle. Can you choose one of these circles and say, here's a way that I'm going to be more intentional. Here's a way that I want to bring more of the grace and truth of Jesus Christ to myself, to my family, to my team, to my organization. I'm going to introduce Todd Bilby to you right now. Todd's a good friend. Todd and I work together in Giant Worldwide, which has produced a lot of the content. We are consultants for Giant Worldwide. And Todd is one of those friends, that I can count them on one hand, who is not just a friend that tells me what I want to hear, but who's a friend who's willing to share the truth with me and to fight for my highest good. And he has proven that on many occasions. And I appreciate you, Todd. Come on, our brother, share with us.
Well, it is great to be here. I have some history with Greenville. My wife and I got married 21 years ago, and I was a pastor at what is now Fellowship Greenville. Back then it was Southside. And so we had our start here in Greenville, and then from here we were in Atlanta with a parachurch ministry. We church planted in Fort Myers, Florida. And God did some great things down there. We were down there for 12 years. God grew the church. We planted 11 other churches while we were down there and had a missions program in 25 countries. And very similar to what Tom's story is, someone who was fighting for my highest possible good brought challenge to me. So while we were building the church, and while we were taking ground for the kingdom, at the same time, I realized I was losing influence at home. And I was losing influence in my children. And so over a period of time, long story, is worth saying, but not today. But we circled back around, moved back to Greenville this past December. And so what I do with Giant, what we do with our ministry, we can live anywhere. And when I asked my wife, where should we live? She said, I want to live in Greenville because it's always felt like home. And so I have a daughter who's 16, who was a newborn when we left here. I have a son who is 13, and then we have a little girl who is 2. That has been just an amazing gift for us. We adopted her from Central China about 18 months ago, and she is she's a ton of energy is what she is. But it's great to be with you all. Like Tom said, the willingness to fight for the good of those that you lead. That's a great definition. Giant is about changing leadership culture by raising up liberating leaders in every major sector and city in the world. We have about 90 consultants in about a dozen countries. Work with companies that you've never heard of, to companies you have heard of, companies like Michelin locally. I've worked with them here for healthcare, education. Yesterday I was with the South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce in Columbia. And so every sector you can imagine all over the world, God is using Giant worldwide to bring kingdom values to the marketplace. And so on the sheet in front of you, I just have a couple minutes to go through this, and I wish I had more time. But the first tool that we talked about, the circles of influence, the question I would ask of you is, do you have a life worth imitating? Do you have a life worth imitating? Can you look at others and say, follow me as I follow Christ? Not an imperfect or a perfect example, but a faithful example, a fruitful example. One of the questions that was asked of me years ago is, Todd, do you want your son Chad to have your life? Do you want him to have your marriage? And those are important questions that really took me on an odyssey to relearn how I was supposed to lead myself and how I was supposed to lead my family. And this tool right here, my friend Steve Cochran, who's one of the founders of Giant, we were vacationing, taking sabbatical as a pastor about 5 years ago in Western Europe. Steve is based just outside of London. And it was one of the first times I saw this next tool, the support challenge matrix. That's right behind this one. And he brought some challenge to my life. And if you look on the vertical axis of this tool, you see high support, and on the bottom you see low support. Off to the right you see high challenge and low challenge. Leaders define culture, and a liberating culture led by a liberating leader has a culture of empowerment and opportunity. That type of leader knows how to calibrate grace and truth. Those are kingdom values that we saw with Jesus in John 4 and John 1. We see that was his character, who he was. He knew how to calibrate support and challenge or grace and truth in all his relationships. None of us is naturally good at calibrating support and challenge. That is a learned competency. It's a challenge to learn how to do that well. And what we learn in the support challenge matrix is we have a tendency, based on how we're wired and who we are, by nature, to fall in the other quadrants. So we can learn to calibrate support and challenge, grace and truth in relationships, but by nature, we tend to fall in these other categories. And you'll recognize this as I go through them. The protector quadrant knows how to bring high support to relationships, but not do challenge very well. That can create a culture of entitlement and mistrust. I don't know if ever you saw the show The Office. Anybody remember that sitcom? If any of you would admit to it. The Office, a guy named Michael Scott, who managed a paper company, and his office was his extended family. And so he was more concerned with keeping the peace and maintaining relationships with his coworkers than he was holding them accountable and setting expectations with them. And while that is a high example of what a protector does, that's what a protector does. So they're good on bringing support, but not as strong on bringing challenge, and it creates a culture of entitlement and mistrust. What we know about the protector is the protector holds back. So what happens if you're a protector, and this is who you are by nature, even though someone is not meeting the expectation or someone is offending you, you hold back for the sake of keep the peace. I don't want to hurt my relationship. And so the person does it once, twice, 5 times, 10 times. Finally, the protector responds, but the protector doesn't respond with the 10th offense. The protector responds with the last 10 offenses, and they become passive aggressive. You may know this person. You may be this person. I have been this person. For the sake of relationship, I try to keep the peace. I hold back, and then I overreact. I become passive aggressive, passive aggressive. We know that leader. We might be that leader. The other one's one we never like to admit to is the advocator. The advocator creates a culture of apathy and low expectation. This is low challenge, low support. This is the person that's just waiting for retirement. I'm just going to stay low below the deck and ride this out until I get there. Or this is the employee who says, well, if the boss is not here, he's not going to see. So I'll work in his presence, but not in his absence. So this creates a culture of apathy and low expectation. We attribute this to our rising generation at times, and I would say that maybe they've had an example of this that they're following. But advocating, none of us likes to admit that. And then you have the dominator quadrant, culture of fear and manipulation. High on challenge, low on support. This